Signpost assessment. This is the same as the Google form. The format just looks a little different. Number 1. I was young once and dealt with the same problems. Let me tell you about how I handled the stress of homework, parents, and girls. First, you need to get yourself organized. The choices are all the same. They are as follows. A. Contrast and contradictions. B. Aha moment. C. Again and again. D. Words of the wiser. E. Tough questions. F. Memory moment. Number 2. There were 50 math problems on the test. 50. Do you hear that? 50. How am I supposed to answer 50 problems in 40 minutes? 50 is just a ridiculous number. Number 3. Remember last year when Susie laughed so hard during lunch and milk came out of her nose? I'll never forget it. It started out like any other lunch period, with us talking about how difficult Mr. Brophy's test was. Then Susie got a bad case of the giggles. 4. I'm struggling with what I want to do in my life. Do I want to go to college and become a scientist, or do I go to trade school and become an electrician? How am I going to decide? 5. Suddenly, I realized if I studied for my test, I wouldn't fail. Duh. 6. I am so full, I can't eat another bite. If I eat another cookie, I'll probably throw up. Although that sugar cookie looks pretty good. 3 more cookies, please. Passages. Read each passage and identify which signpost is present. Then answer the corresponding question. Passage 1. Please don't let the ball come to me. Bree prayed as the server on the other side of the volleyball net threw the ball up in the air. Sure enough, the ball came barreling toward Bree like a rocket. She couldn't help herself. She moved out of the way, and the ball hit the floor right where she had been standing. Bree looked up at the stands and saw her dad put his face in his hands. A moment later, he looked up and yelled, "Bree, hit the ball!" Everyone in the gym could hear the anger in his voice. Bree's chin began to tremble. "It's okay, you'll get it next time," said her teammate Angie. "Shake it off." A few minutes later, it was Bree's turn to serve. Her stomach was churning. She took a deep breath to try to calm her nerves. "You can do this, Bree," she thought to herself. "Maybe this will be the first serve you will get over the net." But as she caught a glimpse of her dad's skeptical face out of the corner of her eye, her confidence shrank just like a balloon that was released of its air. Sure enough, when Bree served the ball, it sailed right into the net. When Bree got into the car after the game, her mom tried to be encouraging. "Did you have fun? Because if you had fun, that's all that counts." Dad scoffed at that comment. Bree remained silent in the back seat, 1,000 thoughts running through her head. Why does Dad have to be so competitive? Why can't he be supportive like the rest of the girls' parents? Will he stop loving me if I can't find a sport that I'm good at? Why doesn't Mom say something? A single tear ran down her face, but she wiped it away before her dad could catch her crying. She knew he'd be furious if he saw her crying. Which signpost is reflected in this passage? Cite a direct quote from the passage that supports your answer to the question above. What does this moment reveal about the characters? How would you describe Bree? How would you describe her father? Passage 2. Ben was lying on the bed, staring up at the ceiling when he heard the door open a crack. Grandpa peeked his head inside the door. "Hey, Ben, I'll be downstairs if you need anything." "I guess you're here to babysit me and make sure I don't spend all afternoon playing video games," said Ben. "I'm not going to let you. Yes, I believe your parents asked me to stay with you while the rest of the family went to the Cubs game because they wanted to make sure you won't do anything they didn't approve of," Grandpa replied. "They don't trust me at all, do they?" Ben grumbled. Grandpa walked over to Ben's bed and sat on the corner of it. "Now, Ben, can you blame them?" "Apparently they told you about what I did," mumbled Ben. "Yes, they told me about the stolen video game." Ben looked down at his bed. "I didn't even want the dumb game. I only did it because Elliot and Daniel dared me. I don't believe I've met Elliot and Daniel, Grandpa said. I'm sure, Mom said. I'm sure Mom told you about them, Ben retorted. Mom and Dad don't like them, but they're my best friends. I must say, Ben, that I can't see how boys who dare you to do illegal things can be considered very good friends, said Grandpa. Ben's face grew red. You sound just like Mom and Dad. Ben, when I was your age, I had so-called friends who convinced me that it would be cool if I started to smoke cigarettes. Within a year, I'd come to realize that these boys were going down a reckless path, and I didn't want to be a part of it. I found some new friends, but now, 60 years later, I still have this terrible smoking habit that I just can't seem to kick. Take it from me. Find some new friends before you do something you regret for the rest of your life. Which signpost is reflected in this passage? Cite a direct quote from the passage that best supports your answer to the question above. How might this moment affect the main character moving forward? Will Ben learn from this? How so? In passage 3, Blake walked into the family room, where his older brother was sitting on the couch talking on the phone. He grabbed the remote, planning to turn on PlayStation. His brother snatched the remote away from him. He pointed to the door and mouthed the word, out. Blake grabbed for the remote, but Ryan was waving it in the air, keeping it away from him. Just a minute, Claire, Ryan said in a friendly voice, and then covered his phone with his hand. Get out of here. I need some privacy, Ryan ordered. Make me, Blake replied with his hands on his hips. If I have to leave, you are going to pay when I get off the phone, hissed Ryan. If you try doing anything to me, I'll tell Mom, Blake said, standing his ground. You're such a brat, Ryan huffed as he left the room. A few hours later, Blake was shooting some hoops in the driveway. Ryan stopped his car along the curb. He and a girl Blake didn't recognize climbed out of the opposite sides of the car. Claire, this is my younger brother Blake, said Ryan. His voice was as sweet as honey. It's nice to meet you, Blake. Do you mind if we shoot some hoops with you? Said Claire. That's fine with me, said Blake, passing Claire the ball. Ryan, you are so lucky to have a brother. I've always wanted a sibling, said Claire. In fact, if I had a younger sister, I just know that we'd be the best friends. Yeah, Blake's the best, said Ryan. We have a super close relationship. He's like my best friend. Blake looked at his brother like he had lost his mind. What did he just say? Shocked, Blake blurted out, I am? Which signpost is reflected in this passage? Cite a direct quote from the passage that supports your answer to the question above. What is Ryan doing? Why do you think he is acting this way?